The wind screamed across the jagged ice cliffs of Vardros, cutting like knives through the last remnants of humanity's northern fortress. Ironreach, once a citadel of hope, now groaned under the weight of siege, its titanium walls dented and blackened by plasma fire. Smoke rose into a gray sky, where 3 moons hung like silent witnesses to the fall of another dream. Snow had turned red beneath the walls. The scent of scorched flesh mixed with blood and fuel. Seris Thorn stood alone at the edge of the outer ramparts, her breath forming thin clouds in the frozen air. Her silver hair whipped about her face, nearly white against the gloom, and her black biomechanical armor pulsed faintly with lines of dormant energy. She did not flinch as the next artillery blast shook the wall behind her. She didn't need to look to know another section of Ironreach had collapsed. Thorn! Commander Harvin's voice crackled through the earpiece. Evac transports are leaving in 6 minutes. You need to get to the docks now. She said nothing, eyes fixed on the forest beyond the outer trench. The trees, twisted and petrified by generations of cryogenic warfare, stood still. But the silence was not peace, it was waiting. Seris. Harvin tried again, this time softer. You're not saving anyone by staying. Whatever it is you think you can do. I'm not thinking, she interrupted. I'm listening. There was again that low, rhythmic tremor beneath the ice. Not mechanical, not natural, something alive. Her fingers tensed on the hilt of the sheathed sword at her hip. Not a relic from the armory, but a blade grown from her own blood, forged in silence after years of exile. Ironreach had been built atop an ancient relay once belonging to the forgotten ancestors of humankind. The Archivist, the rogue AI that raised her, had told her that secrets slept beneath Vardro's ice. But what Seris heard now wasn't a secret awakening. It was a promise. They were coming. The first creatures burst from the treeline like living siege engines. Sentinels, the bioengineered horrors of the Varn Dominion. Towering beasts of muscle, frostbone, and synthetic flesh. Each one stood nearly 15 feet tall and wore skin grafted with carbon blades. Dozens surged forward in a calculated arc, teeth bared, weapons fused to arms, snarling with an intelligence that was not their own. The automated defenses at Ironreach fired in desperate volleys. Turrets, drones, cryomines, but the sentinels adapted with terrifying speed. Their hides changed color, hardened, split open to reveal secondary limbs or plasma vein tendrils. Within minutes, half the wall was overrun. And still, Seris did not move. Through the smoke, a new form appeared. The ground shuddered with each of its steps. Twice the size of the sentinels, the white alpha emerged like a god of winter fury. Its fur shimmered like starlight on fresh snow. Pale as bone, its massive frame rippled with lethal elegance. 2 piercing, blue eyes fixed on the wall and on Seris. Its mouth parted, revealing rows of obsidian teeth. Every soldier watching from the ramparts faltered. The command channels went silent. This wasn't a beast. It was the beast, the apex predator engineered to lead, to conquer, to devour. The Varn had sent their final judgment. Seris stepped down from the wall, walking slowly across the bridge that spanned the trench. Below, the surviving defenders screamed as the sentinels closed in. She ignored them. Her boots crunched over fractured ice and scorched steel. Seris, what the hell are you doing? Harvin shouted in her ear. That thing will rip you in half. She deactivated her comms. A dozen meters separated her from the white alpha. The creature lowered its head, nostrils flaring. Behind it, the sentinels halted their advance. Watching, waiting, the battlefield held its breath. Seris reached for the clasp at her neck, loosening the seal of her armor just enough for the creature to catch her scent. The wind carried it between them. The alpha growled, a deep, low sound that resonated in her bones. Its lips curled back, exposing teeth longer than her forearm. Muscles tensed along its flanks. The command had been clear. Devour them. Seris didn't move. She stared directly into its eyes. "Come on," she whispered. "Do it." The alpha lunged forward with a soundless blur of motion. In a blink, it was upon her, towering over her like a glacier of white fury. Its head reared back, jaws opening wide. And then it stopped. The tip of its nose touched her chest. Its breath was warm, steaming in great plumes. Slowly, impossibly, the white alpha bent its legs and lowered its massive head until it touched the ground at her feet. It bowed. A whisper ran through the ranks of the Varn forces. A distortion surged through their command networks. In one moment, thousands of signals rippled in confusion, desperation. The impossible had occurred. Their greatest weapon had refused. Seris reached out and placed a hand against the alpha's muzzle. She could feel the hum beneath its fur, a network of nanofibers and living data. It recognized her. She could not explain how she knew, only that the connection ran deeper than blood or code. The creature had been made for domination. And yet, here it knelt. Around her, the battlefield remained frozen. "Thorn, report." Harvin's voice came through again, but even he sounded unsure now. "What did you do?" Seris didn't answer. Her eyes were locked on the sentinels behind the alpha. One by one, they began to lower their heads, mimicking their leader's posture. Others howled, long, eerie cries that echoed across the snowfields like ancient songs. Some of them turned and retreated into the forest. In orbit above, the Varn generals watched through biosurveillance feeds. Their biometric logs flared with error codes. One of them, a black-armored strategist named Kedron, smashed his console with a snarl. "She's blood-woken. Shut it down. Purge the alpha. Kill the human." But it was already too late. The white alpha rose, now standing protectively beside Seris. The snow began to fall heavier, obscuring the ridge as she turned and walked back toward the ruins of Ironreach. The beast followed her, massive and silent. A new war had begun, one not fought over territory or technology, but over what it meant to be feared and what it meant to be followed. And the creatures that once devoured now knelt, not to power, but to her. The silence that followed was not peace. It was a suspension. The kind of quiet that exists only when the rules have been broken and no one yet knows what comes next. The sentinels faded into the woods, scattered like shadows returned to their source. And Ironreach stood wounded, but no longer under siege. Above the fortress, black smoke curled into a steel-gray sky. Snow fell in curtains, hiding the wreckage. No one spoke of victory. They didn't know what to call it. Seris Thorn stood beside the creature that should have ended her. The white alpha matched her step for step, its massive paws leaving deep prints in the snow. Soldiers watched from the shattered walls, weapons lowered, unsure whether to salute or flee. No one dared approach. In the command bunker, Harvin stood with arms crossed, his jaw locked in a scowl. When Seris entered, the room fell quiet. Behind her, the creature waited at the threshold, too large to fit inside, its breath fogging the air like steam from a ruptured pipe. "You just walked out there," Harvin said, voice low. "In front of that thing. It could have torn you in half." "It didn't," she replied. Harvin gestured to the monitors. "You realize what you've done? That beast was their command alpha, biolinked to half the Varn siege force. And now it answers to you. We're getting scrambled chatter across every Varn channel. They're panicked." Seris didn't flinch. "Good." Harvin narrowed his eyes. "What the hell are you, Thorn?" She turned her gaze to the digital display, live satellite feed showing the enemy lines withdrawing beyond the ravine. And she looked back to him. On what they were afraid we'd remember. No one replied. That night, Seris didn't return to the barracks. She made camp beyond the southern wall, where the snow lay untouched and the sky opened above the tree line. The Alpha, whom she now called Veyr, after an ancient word in the archivist's database meaning he who remembers, lay curled around her shelter, a wall of white fur and breathing heat. She didn't sleep. Not at first. Not while the memories stirred. Years ago, when she was still a child, she had lived beyond the fringe cities in a research outpost buried beneath the ice. Her parents were geneticists, rebels in a quiet war. They had uncovered fragments of data left behind by the lost age of humanity, the time before Earth fell and the stars became battlegrounds. That data spoke of humans who had not been conquered, but had transcended, evolving through bioforging and neural bonding, binding minds to beasts and bodies to elements. The Veyr Dominion had erased that history, declared heresy. Her parents were executed when she was 9. Sarah survived by hiding in a sublevel lab, locked in darkness with nothing but the whispering voice of the archivist AI, a malfunctioning caretaker that pieced together the shattered history of her kind. It had taught her more than survival. It had taught her who she was, a carrier of the old genome, a latent key. She didn't understand it fully then, but the Veyr did, and they were afraid. Veyr shifted in his sleep, one luminous eye opening as if reading her thoughts. She reached out and touched his snout. The connection was deepening. With every passing hour, their bond grew more intricate. Thoughts flickered between them like sparks crossing a synaptic gap. There were images, too, memories not her own, tanks of liquid light, needles, commands burned into bone. Pain. She saw the Veyr engineers looming over him, their voices cold and cruel, their hands laced with machinery. Veyr had not been born. He had been built, each cell modified to enhance his aggression, obedience, and intelligence. But within that complex tapestry of control, something ancient had awoken when he saw her. Something buried beneath code and cruelty. Recognition. The archivist had spoken once of the bloodwoken, humans whose genetic sequence could activate dormant pathways in engineered life forms. They had ruled not by domination, but by resonance. Through unity, not fear. The Veyr had hunted them to extinction. But extinction was not always the end. The following morning, an encrypted transmission arrived at Ironreach. Not from another human outpost. Those were long gone. The signal originated from the Veyr Dominion itself. It was a direct broadcast to Seris. On the main display, a figure emerged. Tall, armored in black alloy, his face hidden behind a segmented mask. General Kedron. Seris Thorn, he said, his voice a mechanical purr. You are in possession of stolen biological property. Return the Alpha to our control, and you will be allowed to live. She said nothing. The figure tilted his head. You do not comprehend what you've done. That beast is not your ally. It is a weapon, ours. You are a fragment of a broken code. An error. Sarah stepped in a frame, eyes cold. No, she said. I'm the original version. You're the copy. Kedron paused. Then you choose rebellion. Know this, there is no sanctuary. We will find you. And when we do, not even your monster will save you. The transmission cut. Harvin looked to her. They're coming. With everything they've got. Seris nodded. Then we don't wait. She left that afternoon, slipping through the dead forests with Veyr at her side. She moved swiftly, drawing on old maps from the archivist's data stores, seeking the coordinates whispered in her father's voice during childhood bedtime stories. Stories she now realized had been more than fiction. They were directions. A memory map. The journey took them into deeper ice fields, where nothing lived, not even drones. Here, beneath a glacier blackened with ash, she found it. Black Forest Station. The outpost rose like a forgotten blade through the frost, its architecture unlike anything she'd seen in modern human or Veyr design. Angular, crystalline, humming faintly with dormant power. It was not built. It was grown. Her armor resonated with the entrance, lines of light pulsing across her chest plate as the door melted open. Inside, the air was still and warm, preserved by ancient systems that had not failed in centuries. Lights flickered on, revealing walls carved with gene script, long-dead languages etched into metal and memory. Seris stepped forward, and something stirred. A voice, not Veyr's, not the archivist, something older, bloodline verified. The words came from nowhere and everywhere. The floor lit beneath her feet. Panels shifted. A console emerged from the ground, displaying swirling sequences of code and cellular diagrams. Primary key accepted, initiating legacy restoration. She watched as images formed in the air above the console. Holograms of battles fought in other centuries, humans commanding beasts of light and stone, their minds entwined in harmony. She saw her ancestors, not weak, not conquered, but transcendent. Behind her, Veyr stood still, watching. Then something else happened. His body tensed. Seris turned just as the wall split open to reveal a swarm of dark figures. Veyr enforcers, armed and silent, emerging from stealth fields. They had followed her. The trap had sprung, but it was already too late for them. Veyr lunged before the first shot fired, a blur of ivory fury tearing through metal and flesh. Seris dove behind the console, grabbing the interface tool from her belt and jamming it into the port. She began uploading everything. Outside, the sound of Veyr's roar filled the halls. And for the first time in generations, the systems of the Black Forest answered back. Veyr was a storm given flesh. The narrow halls of Black Forest Station amplified the sound of his rage, a symphony of steel rent apart and bone crushed under claw. Seris moved through the chaos like a ghost, her breath tight in her throat, her hands dancing across the ancient console. Lines of code streamed upward in pulsing waves, half-deciphered command languages older than the Dominion itself. She didn't need to understand it all. Her presence alone was enough. The system responded to her as if waking from a long, sorrowful dream. Flashes of light marked the end of each Veyr operative who dared advance. Veyr struck with precision and fury, his movements no longer animalistic but purposeful, surgical. He wasn't just protecting her. He was executing a directive etched deep in his DNA. An ancestral loyalty long suppressed, but now roaring back to life. Seris triggered the archive transfer and pulled back as the hologram shifted. The chamber walls shimmered, revealing what lay behind them. Rows of pod-like structures, each containing forms, humanoid, beast, hybrid. The ancients hadn't just documented. They had prepared, left behind weapons for the bloodline to reclaim. The console pulsed red, biomass integrity at 62%, core awakening incomplete. She swore under her breath. It wasn't ready. Not yet. A sudden blast rocked the corridor behind her. Veyr let out a snarl, stumbling as a concussive pulse threw him against the far wall. The remaining Veyr soldiers weren't alone. One stepped through the smoke, larger than the others, encased in exo-armor traced with crimson sigils. The commander. Seris grabbed her weapon and fired, the blast striking his shoulder, but the impact only staggered him. He raised his gauntlet, charging another pulse. Veyr struggled to rise, bleeding from a gash along his flank. The commander advanced. Then everything went white. An eruption of energy surged from the floor, shattering the walls, tossing Seris and the soldier aside like toys. The console flared one last time before going dark. Silence fell, broken only by the low hum of reactivated systems. Seris pushed herself up, vision swimming. The soldier was gone, crushed beneath collapsed debris. Veyr groaned nearby, but was breathing. Alive. She stood, shaking, and looked around. The central pod was open. Something had emerged. Footsteps echoed through the chamber. Not heavy, not monstrous, but deliberate. Seris turned, her pulse hitching. It was a woman, or something like one. She was tall, draped in layered armor that shimmered like obsidian and frost. Her hair was white, like Seris's, but it moved unnaturally, as if responding to a different gravity. Her eyes were crystalline, flickering with knowledge and memory, and something older, something vast. She looked at Seris not as one might look at a stranger, but as if reading the next line in a prophecy long memorized. "You woke me," she said. Her voice was calm, melodious, but underneath it ran currents of something deeper, a hum that resonated in Seris's bones. "I didn't know I could," Seris replied. "You are the last of the first. The bloodline endured where the stars did not." The woman walked past her, kneeling before Veyr. She extended a hand. He sniffed it, then bowed his great head. "His bond is true," the woman said. "You've broken their programming. You've restored him." Seris nodded, unsure whether to feel proud or afraid. "Who are you?" The woman rose. "My name is not important. I was a guardian. My purpose was to await the return of the resonant. You. But I'm not." Seris stopped herself. She had said that before. Denied what the archivist had whispered, what her blood had revealed. The woman smiled. "You are not alone anymore." From behind the crystalline walls, more lights began to glow. Pods unlocking, one after another. Not all were filled. Many held only dust. But others began to open, and within them moved shapes. Beasts. Warriors. Constructs born of old sciences. Survivors of a different age. Seris backed away as one of them stepped forward, a humanoid figure wrapped in living bark and metal, its eyes glowing faintly. The woman turned to her again. The Varn were the first to forget, but now they will remember. "They'll come," Seris said, "with armies, with weapons stronger than anything we've seen." The woman nodded. "Then we must be stronger still." Later, as dawn cracked over the glacier and storm clouds rolled away, Seris stood at the mouth of black forestation, watching the horizon. She felt different, not in body, but in understanding. She had thought herself alone, hunted, a freak clinging to myths. Now she stood among echoes made flesh. Veyr sat beside her, bandaged but proud. Below them, the others moved in silence, forming ranks, checking weapons, integrating with the restored systems. They were an army being born again. Harvin's voice crackled in over her comms. "We got your burst signal. Sensors picked up major seismic activity and life signs. Hundreds. What the hell happened out there?" She pressed the comm to her lips. "Humanity happened." There was a pause. Then, "Are we finally fighting back?" "We are," she said. But even as she spoke the words, she felt the gravity of them. This wasn't just rebellion anymore. This was something greater. A remembering. That night, the sky above the black forest lit with streaks of red and silver. Dropships piercing atmosphere, scanning for targets. The Dominion wasn't hesitating. They were sending a cleansing force. But Seris was no longer the one being hunted. She summoned the others, and together they stood beneath the stars. Veyr beside her, the woman of obsidian behind her, the reawakened children of an ancient war-forming ranks. They didn't speak. They didn't pray. They prepared. And when the first ship breached the outer sky, Seris didn't flinch. She welcomed it. The air shimmered with static as the Dominion dropships descended, streaking fire through the dusk like dying stars. Snow scattered in swirling gusts, the icy winds howling across the high plateaus of the Black Forest. From her perch on the cliff edge, Seris watched the sky burn, her heart thundering in quiet defiance. She stood surrounded by the reawakened, the ancients reborn, the relics of a war that had never truly ended. And at her side, Veyr crouched low, his massive frame tense, eyes locked on the incoming threat. He no longer looked like a beast. He looked like a king. Behind them, the others gathered, an army not of numbers but of purpose. The bark-armored sentinel, whose very breath rippled the air with ancient power. The lithe, feline-like warrior who shimmered between planes of visibility, and the obsidian-clad woman whose presence anchored them all. She had no name, yet all bowed to her. She had been forged to wait, and now her time had come. The enemy arrived in calculated waves. Dropships hissed as they split open, exo-suited soldiers pouring out in formation. Plasma rifles hummed to life, scanning. At first, they met only the wind and silence. Then came the howl, a low, resonant war cry that echoed not just through the mountains, but deep into the bones of every living thing. Veyr launched first, a flash of fur and fawn. Dominion fire peppered the snow, but it did nothing to slow him. He moved like fury incarnate, scattering the front line in seconds. Seris followed with the others, her rifle in hand, but rarely used. Where once she had relied on tools and tech, now her blood pulsed with something else, something older. Her mind thrummed with clarity, her reflexes sharpened by instinct passed down through generations. She moved like she had always known how to do this. The battle turned the white landscape red. Plasma met claw, blade met bone. Screams were devoured by the storm. The reawakened fought as one entity, coordinated without communication, bound by some shared memory, etched into their creation. The bark-armored sentinel unleashed a wave of force that shattered the ground beneath the advancing mechs, while the shadow warrior flitted between soldiers, tearing their visors apart before they could react. The obsidian woman moved last, calm, precise, unstoppable. Where she walked, the Dominion fell. But Seris knew this was only the beginning. The real weapon was not soldiers or ships. It was the mind of the Dominion. It was control, indoctrination. They had programmed an entire species to forget what it meant to resist. That was why she had to win. Midway through the conflict, a new figure emerged from the enemy lines. A general, taller, more heavily armored, face hidden behind a mirrored mask. He walked through the carnage untouched, immune to the storm and the blood. Seris recognized him. General Kale, the butcher of Arneen, the man who had raised her colony, the man who had broken her father beneath the iron boots of conformity. She felt the burn of memory flash hot in her chest. Kale stopped mere paces away, scanning her from behind that emotionless mask. "You are a mistake," he said through the modulated speaker. "You were meant to be erased." Seris stepped forward, past Veyr's protective stance. "You erased our history, but you didn't erase us." He tilted his head. "What you have done here, this resurgence, it will be crushed. Again, the Dominion learns. It adapts. So do we," she said. Kale raised his hand, and a pulse of energy struck the ground, sending shockwaves outward. Seris shielded her face, stumbling back as the snow exploded around her. Veyr leapt between them, growling, but was struck mid-air and flung aside. The general's suit glowed with stored kinetic force. This was no mere man. This was the Dominion's finest, their failsafe. He came at her with lightning speed, striking hard and fast. Seris dodged, rolled, parried, every move flowing from instincts she had never trained. Their weapons clashed, steel on energy, memory on machine. But he was too strong. He pinned her, forcing her to the ground, gauntlet pressed to her chest. "You are not a savior," he hissed. "You are a relic." Then the howl came again. But this time it wasn't Veyr. A chorus rose across the battlefield, distant at first, then nearer. Howls upon howls, dozens of them, growing in strength. The mountain answered. From the tree lines, more creatures burst forth. Not just beasts, but kin. White wolves, massive, blue-eyed, their presence unmistakable. They had come. Veyr's pack. Kale turned, momentarily stunned. That was all Seris needed. She grabbed the blade from her belt and drove it into the weak point beneath his arm, just as Veyr lunged again from the flank. The general roared, twisting, but it was too late. The blade severed something vital, and Veyr's jaws locked around his throat. When they fell, they did not rise. Seris gasped, catching her breath, her hands trembling. Around her, the tide had shifted. The Dominion was retreating, what remained of them. The wolves pursued, but Seris called them back. It was over. The snow settled. The wind calmed. Veyr stood beside her, chest heaving, his fur soaked in red and frost. She placed her hand on his side, and he leaned into it, a gesture of kinship beyond words. The obsidian woman approached, her eyes scanning the battlefield. This was only the first strike. They will regroup. "I know," Seris said. "But now they know what we are, what we remember." She nodded. "And they should be afraid." In the days that followed, they buried the fallen and gathered the wounded. The mountain fortress became a beacon, its signal pulsing across the old relay networks. Not a call for help, but a message: we are awake. Across the stars, others like Seris stirred. Hidden enclaves, long-lost archives, dreamers who had held onto forgotten truths. The resonance spread, not like a virus, but like fire, controlled but unstoppable. And Seris found herself changed. No longer the hunted, no longer the outlier. She was leader, link, legend. She trained with the ancients, walked the halls of memory, learned not just what had been lost, but what had been taken. The technology they unlocked was not of conquest, but of balance. Not built to dominate, but to preserve. Humanity had been shaped into something docile. Now, it was reshaping itself. One evening, standing on the same cliff where the first battle began, Seris looked to the stars. Veyr sat beside her, silent and vigilant. The obsidian woman joined them, holding a device pulsing with celestial energy. "There is one last archive," she said, "beyond the wound in the sky. It holds a truth they fear most." Seris didn't hesitate. "Then we go," she said. The stars waited. The war wasn't over, but the forgetting was.